Matt Gaetz, a close ally of the former president, as well as a favorite among conservative activists. The New York Times is reporting that Gaetz is being investigated by the Justice Department over whether he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl and paid for her to travel with him. Gaetz told the news site Axios tonight that the allegations against him are false. According to Axios, he also said, quote, "I was not a target, but a subject of an investigation regarding sexual conduct with women." Gaetz has also fired off a series of tweets tonight claiming that he was the subject of an elaborate extortion scheme. Joining me now on the phone is New York Times reporter Katie Benner, who shares the byline on this story. Katie, so good to have you on tonight. Tell us, what more do you know about the exact focus of the DOJ investigation?
Thanks so much for having me on. What we know is that the Justice Department began investigating Congressman Gaetz last summer. It stemmed from another investigation into one of the congressman's friends, who was investigated and charged for a variety of crimes, including trafficking of an underage woman. So it seems that what the Justice Department is looking at is whether or not Mr. Gaetz, in having this relationship with a 17-year-old girl, violated federal statutes that include interstate, taking her over state lines and giving her something of value, quote unquote, which could be money or it could be something like a travel expense.
Understood. Okay. In the simplest terms, have you confirmed whether or not Congressman Gaetz had a relationship with this young woman?
We just know that that is what investigators are looking into.
Okay. Understood. And we should note, as you say, this began last summer when the Justice Department was led by Bill Barr. All right. This evening, Congressman Gaetz, he tweeted several times after your report was posted, basically a statement. And I do want to read them here, quoting, "Over the past several weeks, my family and I have been victims of an organized criminal extortion involving a former DOJ official seeking $25 million while threatening to smear my name. We have been cooperating with federal authorities in this matter, and my father has even been wearing a wire at the FBI's direction to catch these criminals. The planted leak to the FBI tonight was intended to thwart that investigation. No part of the allegations against me are true, and the people pushing these lies are targets of the ongoing extortion investigation. I demand the DOJ immediately release the tapes made at their direction, which implicate their former colleague in crimes against me based on false allegations." I wonder, how does that square with your reporting and what he told you as you were reporting out this story?
I mean, that dovetails with our reporting. Keep in mind that when this investigation was opened, it was opened under the Justice Department under William P. Barr, who had last February told all prosecutors that if anyone's investigated who was a member of Congress, somebody running for office, anybody high profile, that investigation had to be signed off on by their supervisors, the U.S. attorney, the head of the criminal division, and then basically briefed to Bill Barr himself. So I think it's really unlikely that Bill Barr would have investigated one of President Trump's biggest allies as part of an extortion plot. So, separate from that, the idea of the extortion, we do have some reporting that last week somebody had heard about this investigation and did use the information to try to get money out of Congressman Gaetz' father. I don't think that what Congressman Gaetz is saying about extortion actually undermines the idea that he himself is under investigation.
Understood. One followed the other. Okay, important. Hold on for a moment here. I want to bring in CNN's chief political correspondent as well as co-anchor of State of the Union, Dana Bash. So, Dana, remarkable story here in the Times. Of course, those tweets from Congressman Gaetz, they make a huge claim about what he says he's been subject to. But as Katie was making the point, it seems that from her reporting, that extortion investigation followed the initial investigation of this improper relationship. What do you make of how he's responding to all this?
He's coming out guns blazing, but he's doing so because of the fact that somebody wanted this piece of information, the fact that this is an investigation that's been going on for at least several months, considering the fact that this that Katie was reporting that it started during not just the Trump administration, but while the Attorney General at the time was William Barr, who didn't make it to the end of the Trump administration. That's quite telling. And look, this looks like this is from the Times reporting, a very lengthy, very detailed investigation of this associate of his. But as Katie was saying, it doesn't mean that, and the fact that he knew about it suggests perhaps he's not the target of the investigation, but the fact that he sort of concedes that he is the subject of it means that he could be in trouble. But again, I just want to emphasize the politics of the fact that Gates is not just being investigated by a Justice Department of another administration of another party. This started during the administration of the person who he is closely linked with, the most closely linked with. And the reason why we even know his name, because he's kind of a backbencher Republican, and it's because he has been so far out there in defending the former president through thick and thin.
It's a good point. And as you know better than me, these terms, target, subject of investigation, they're often imprecise. They can be and can often change. As you know, tonight's drama comes on the heels of Axios reporting earlier today that Congressman Gates is actually looking to leave Congress for an on-air job at Newsmax, a right-wing media channel owned by a Trump ally. I don't want to connect things that aren't related, but what do you read into that, given the Times story and his tweets? Any connection?
Well, he has now since told the New York Times that he has no intention of leaving Congress. So that's an update to Katie's story that she's breaking tonight about the whole investigation. But let's just say that this was something that the congressman was considering. It wouldn't be surprising, Jim, that he is a fixture on conservative media. Yeah. He really loves the spotlight, loves the theatrics, no matter what. Just one example, he went on the floor of the House and put a gas mask on in a way to, frankly, mock the notion of wearing a mask to protect yourself from COVID. And most recently, he traveled. He's from Florida. He has no connection to the state of Wyoming, but he traveled to Wyoming to hold a press conference to taunt a member of his own leadership, Liz Cheney, because she voted to impeach Donald Trump. Yeah. And so that is the context in which we should remember to view this member of Congress. He likes to be at the kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to Republican politics.